recently I became a huge fan of Star Wars, and I was really into the movies and the meaning behind concepts and what they represent as a sort of metaphor for democracy and society and the world order at the moment. So the fascination with the brand sort of pushed me to play the game, and I have to say I've really fallen into the bias of online YouTubers and online discourse exaggerating things so they can make content and so they can criticize, they can sound as if they have an opinion and stuff. And this happened before, and there was a big craze on YouTube before where people would exaggerate, they would make a character out of themselves and then they would exaggerate things, and that would make them popular. And people make money the way they stumbled upon, and it works for them. But I think what it does in the long run, especially for I guess people like me, whatever that would mean in this context, but it sort of destroys the image of the thing. There was movies that I thought were bad for a long time before actually watching them, and then I would watch them and I would think, I can see why something would be disappointing or not up to whatever expectation one might have, but not bad by any stretch of the imagination, especially as somebody who has finished film and has finished film school and has made some short films and participated in making some bigger projects. Making film is difficult, and this is not to sort of to deny any criticism towards film, but it is to sort of understand that film is a process and it takes time to make film, and also it should take time to understand film. Having an opinion on face value is fine. Being just a consumer is, whatever you want to do. But I think trying to understand film or games or anything media related, or I guess art related, should be understood as art. You should take your time to understand it as art, to see what it is trying to tell you below the surface as well. And that's why I wanted to do with this game, of course, trying to find any sort of depth in a Lego game is is not the smartest thing to do, but it's not what I wanted to do. I just wanted to see how the game was and if it was fun, how true were the criticisms, etc. And one of the things that watching online reviews and opinion pieces makes, or one of the effects it has, is you kind of start seeing things other people saw before you, and this is why I sometimes try to avoid spoiling myself to things. It's because when people criticize something, like for example the big sort of criticism of the Skywalker saga was that it was linear. That was a big criticism, that it was really linear. And when I was playing the game for the first time, I was really focused on the hallways and how they just bend one way and how. And then I just told myself, well, this is basically every Lego game. In every Lego game, you go from room to room and you solve basic puzzles. That's not the point. It's not meant to have like branching pathways. And then it turned out that the Skywalker saga actually had branching pathways. And I was like, okay, so what the hell are these people talking about? Maybe to them it's linear. Maybe they're used to playing some other games and they're just projecting their disappointment. But for me, it was fine. I didn't find the game too linear. There was actually multiple. They were artificial options, to be fair, but like they were still options to go left or right to build the thing on the left or the thing on the right, which is more than you can say for a majority of Lego games, at least. But I would say games in general. So I thought a lot of the criticism was not as objective, maybe a bit misplaced. But there was also a lot of things that I did not like about the game. I could not bring myself to say this is good and this is up to standard. And I guess it was mainly because I was enjoying myself so much playing the game that when these moments of disappointment happened, it was a big drop because it just went against the established expectation I had of me actually enjoying the game a couple of hours in. So I just thought of making a small reflection video, sort of a review, sort of a pros and cons video, just to sort of inform people and also to kind of put all of my opinions into one place, because that's something that I like to do, just so I know what I think of something, so I don't have to constantly rethink the process of getting there. So when it comes to my how much I completed the game, I have 100%ed all of the stories, and I have 100%ed several planets, and I'm probably gonna do a 100% of all of the game, even though I heard horror stories when trying to platinum this game. Um, and yeah, I mean, I don't tend to do that on the games I don't like. I would not 100% a game I disliked, and or I didn't find any redeeming value. Of course, I also 100%ed Sonic Forces and games such as that. But there's just a certain level of calm I feel when a game is very repetitive and easy that I can't put it down. And that's something I'm gonna count in when I'm making a conclusion on this video. But to sort of set things straight when it comes to my relation to this game, what I think of it, what the good things are, what the bad things are. I think the Lego charm. Let's start with the goods. I think the Lego charm is undeniable. It's still there. I'm pretty sure it's built on the same engine as the games before it. The Lego charm, right? It's still present. I guess because it was built on the same engine. I think that was a huge sort of talking point a couple of months ago, or maybe a year ago. I don't remember, but people were saying that maybe a new engine should have been used to sort of compensate for the bigger scale, because the game now mostly takes a behind the shoulder perspective, and it's sort of looking more like a single player modern game rather than a Lego game. But it is still a Lego game. Things have just been redesigned to look differently, but the gameplay loop is pretty much the same. And I like that. I wouldn't want my Star Wars game to be not Lego Star Wars. That would defeat the purpose of it being what it was. You can make another game then. So I like that. I like that Lego charm was there. I really like, I guess, the feeling of just being in this universe and things generally having a good feeling when you're controlling them and when you're sort of interacting with the environment. I found that most of the platforming is fun in the open world, and even some of the levels, if I remember correctly. It's sort of, it's not the best thing out there. It doesn't compete with some of the better platformers, but it was satisfying. A lot of the geography, a lot of the architecture, you can climb on it, and that's something that a lot of the games today miss out on, because they have to be cinematic. They have to accommodate for a lot of complex but stiff and realistic animations, and then you miss out on climbing every single inch of a building and performing these cool things, and maybe doing things in a unintended way. But that was always fun. I always found that fun, to sort of approach a problem in a way that makes sense. For example, one of the things that I read in a comment once, and then I realized that that's a way to do it. If you wanted to pick up those Kyber bricks that were high up in the air, not too high up, but like somewhat high up, you can just switch to a Jedi, and then switch the player 2 to a droid, and then you switch back to the Jedi and you pick up the droid. You take it up to the Kyber brick, and then you switch the player to the droid, and then the droid picks up the Kyber brick. And there was many of those that I did, because the alternative was to switch to Jedi and then find random boxes in the overworld, or like that are set around the Kyber brick, and then you slowly stack up like 6 or 5 boxes, and then you climb on top of them. That was really tedious, and I'm glad that they didn't fix this. It's probably an exploit, but it makes things so much easier, and it's fun, because I feel like I have learned mechanics of the game, and I have paid attention to the game so much that I actually know how to do something that's not, spelled out. And I always find that fun. So that's another positive for the game. It's the charm. It's fairly good platforming. And then I guess what I also said there, which also holds true, there's a lot of ways to do things. Despite the criticism of linearity, I feel like you can kind of wiggle around and do things. There's bricks that you can get this way, but you can also glide there and stuff like that. I feel like that is satisfying enough. It could have been more, there's a lot of hand holding in the game, but there's a fair amount of tricking the game while still not breaking the game, and I think that's a sweet spot that TT Games has managed this time around. Another positive of this game, a really good thing they did, is the environments. I think the environments are really authentic and they are almost too good for what one expects from a Lego game. And this is not to diminish the value of the Lego games, but Lego games have, for the most part, had very bland, pseudo-realistic art styles with mixing them with the Lego brand. So you have like pseudo-realistic buildings, and then you have Lego elements within the buildings that sort of make up the gameplay. And it makes the whole process of developing the games easier. And I think it's also easier on the eyes. I think it's kind of jarring to see when a Lego game is mostly Lego. It's sort of it doesn't, for some reason, it doesn't really lend itself well. And so I find it much better when it's pseudo realistic, and because the graphics, and you have to congratulate the team there because they managed to pull out the graphics and make the graphics, but also because just the technology is there now. The game just looks good. There's a certain environments that you just like going through them. Like I like going through Tatooine. I like climbing those houses. I like climbing the hills. They look like the hills I've seen in the movies. I think they did a good job, a great job even, in capturing the environment of, they simplify the environment, but there's so many planets, there's so many things that they implemented. They had a tough job, and I think they sort of made this miniature version of every single micro reality of Star Wars, and they made it work. They made it beautiful. They made it fun for the most part. I think that's a big plus for this game. And overall, if I had to sort of give a general rating on the game, and it would mostly be positive, I would say you would feel like playing a premium Lego Star Wars experience. As controversial as that may sound, people are bound to be nostalgic towards the original games, which I haven't played. I have played most of the Lego games, but I have not played Lego Star Wars 1 and 2. I've played Lego Star Wars 3, which I did not enjoy as much as people did online. I found it very tedious, and I found that a lot of the gameplay was copy and pasted, which in turn it made it tedious. I found the game to be a bit disjointed. It tried to combine, as far as I remember, the two first seasons of Attack of the Clones, and then sort of retelling of some of the movies. And I think similar to Lego Indiana Jones 2, which has its charm, it just feels very filler. It feels like something that somebody did to just satisfy a contract rather than having an idea. And satisfying a contract doesn't have to produce a bland game. I'm not saying the game is totally bland. I still completed it, but not 100%, which I have a tendency to do on Lego games because I just find the collecting gameplay loop satisfying enough. When it comes to the third Star Wars game, I did not find it enticing enough. But this is not about that game. I was just attempting to compare, and I feel like the current game, the Skywalker Saga, captures the charm, and it has a satisfying gameplay loop. So as I was saying, if I was giving an overall overall recommendation, I would say it's a game that captures Star Wars well. It's a game that captures Lego Star Wars well, and it has a fun gameplay loop, as well as a layer of the Star Wars story, this time with voice acting, which I didn't mind. And I feel as a package, it's satisfying to play through, and it doesn't leave you disappointed at the end. I think just playing through the game, you will get basically what you paid for and what you would expect from such a game. But there are things to say. There are cons of the game, and I really wish to say them because Well, I wish to articulate myself on the matter so I know for myself what I didn't like, and then maybe potentially, should somebody take this critique, somebody who can do something about it, maybe they can implement these things that I'm recommending and things I'm saying were not as good. But they are probably aware of those things because when studios put out games, it's most likely not a finished product that they intended. There's a lot of voices and power dynamics that determine a game's and a product's fate, a film's fate, any sort of major production, and even minor productions. But yeah, the bad things, or I guess cons, really have to do with tedium. They have to do with the scope of the game, which I feel was way above what they could have accomplished, and which is a trend that I'm noticing in games these days. They sort of over, they have an over ambition, and they try to introduce too many things. They sort of, I guess it's a childlike thing to want to add a lot of things, but when you have to implement them, you're sort of hit with reality of just not being able to do that, especially with the reality of a lot of executives breathing down your necks, which is not a good reality, and I wish it would be over, but it's a reality, and you have to deal with that. But okay, to be more concrete, when it comes to critiquing this game, there's two things that I would say are almost deal breakers to an otherwise mostly fun experience. Number one is just a very questionably implemented system of like tracking kyber bricks and tracking other things on the map. If I was to simplify the statement, bugginess of the game, and I would not call this game exceptionally buggy. I wouldn't say it's a broken mess, anything of the sort. But if you don't know game design, for example, there are things that might just outright confuse you. And this mostly has to do, for example, when you're tracking bricks and when you're trying to complete the side missions. Sometimes the side mission doesn't load because you have, for example, in this game, this is another point which I'm going to talk about later, but you have rumors. You can find a rumor on a planet or on a different planet, and then the rumor will activate a mission on this planet or the other planet. You heard something about something, and then the mission appears there. So I was on one of those planets. I don't exactly remember the name. I think it was Forbidden Village or something. I have activated the rumor, which activates the mission that's in on the planet in one of the houses. And when and then I activated the tracking, I went to the mission place, but there was nothing loaded there. It was just saying there was just a radical saying the kyber brick is meant to appear here, or saying the mission is meant to be here, but the whole house was practically empty. Because I know how games work, and most of us know how games work, I went to a different planet and then I went back hoping that it will actually load the proper state of the map now that I have activated the rumor. It had actually loaded the state. I went to the house and the mission was there. Eventually, people will find how things work, but it's a very, you don't want your players to go to the fundamentals of game design to know, or game structure, game programming, to actually activate your missions. That should have been fixed. If I'm activating a rumor on a planet, and that's a basic feature of the game, the interior of the building should change once I activated the rumor, or there should have been a compensation which made the load work, because the way it was, it almost felt like the game was broken, and this kind of gave me a panic attack, or a slight panic attack, not to exaggerate, because I have had experiences with Lego games just completely breaking down, completely preventing you from actually completing the game 100%, and it can happen 97% into the collection process, which happened to me with Lego Harry Potter twice, I think. The first Lego Harry Potter, there's a certain piece that just falls through the collision in one of the Hogwarts buildings. I think it was the Owlry, like the post owl post building. There's an egg. I think you have to you have to transfer from one place to another. The egg can just fall through the collision and never respawn, and you can never complete the game 100%. So I was really scared that, and there was many points in this game, in Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, where I was like, man, that this just really happened. There was missions that it was saying that the mission is there, but the mission hasn't been loaded. You haven't activated. There was just not a proper procedure that I did for the mission to activate, even though it should have activated. And I think that's something I should not, as a player, be worrying about. I should not be worrying about how you structured your activation programming for side quests to actually play the game. I think that's something I should be spared from. And the second thing that sort of could have been a deal breaker for me when it comes to this game is the repetitive nature of certain missions. And you can say that side quests are not the meat of the game, and so whatever happens there is sort of whatever. And I guess I can see the threading of that argument. I can see why it would be valid, even though I don't necessarily agree with it. But let's say that that's semi-valid. That's a thing you can say. But the way the missions, the way the story missions are structured, is very tedious. There are certain levels which are just shooting on a starship levels, which I guess happened in Star Wars before. I actually don't know if it did. I think in Clone Wars there was several levels which were just shooting things and then maybe landing on a platform or two. But even that landing part sort of compensates for the Lego experience. I feel like spaceships, as cool as it was the first 15 times to do the whole mission, it becomes very tedious. And then when you realize the whole level is just a scripted event of you chasing something or escaping from something with the ship, I get disappointed. I feel like I've been robbed of a level because there's only 5 levels per story as opposed to 6 levels, which we're used to when it comes to the Lego formula. Or at least I was used to, because most of the games I played had 6 levels, as far as I remember. Any case, it doesn't have to be. It can be 5 if it's meaty levels. But I feel like a lot of the levels were trimmed. I feel like a lot of the levels were like, yeah, I will make that a level. Sure. A lot of the story takes place in the hub worlds. You go too many things, and it's very slow. And you're listening to dialogue in a Lego Star Wars game, and you're catching up with the story, and you're walking very slowly. It's preventing you from sprinting, the usual modern gaming moment that's happening. You're just walking very slowly so you can hear all the dialogue. But Lego games are arcade games. Those things should have been kept to a minimal. So you experience most of the story through the hub world, and then you play the level, and the level is just defeat this ship. And I just feel cheated out. I feel like I haven't gotten the experience, and I don't want to replay the level. I don't care about the level. And I think it was the one where you chase Boba Fett, if I remember correctly. That level just lasts like 5 hours. Like, it just keeps going. You defeat, I think he has like 3 hearts, which means that you have to defeat him 3 times off his health bar going to the end. So every time you go to the end, it resets. And there's also that chase where Anakin and Obi-Wan chase the assassin. It just lasts for like forever, especially if you don't have auto aim on. You just can't hit the collision that they intended you to hit. So it just lasts for like billion years of you chasing him around. And I feel like it was almost a deal breaker for me. It was just not a nitpick. At the beginning, it was a nitpick. I thought, okay, you have this and that, but then you have, I said about the ships, but then you also have like battles with like Darth Vader and then Darth Maul and stuff. It just lasts forever, and it locks you into a scripted gameplay scenario where you have a limited movement. A lot of your environment is just wasted in those battles. I remember when you were battling. I think it was the first battle between Luke. There was Luke and R2-D2, and then they were battling Darth Vader. I was exploring the area because it's a level. You go from one section where you fight him, then you unlock a second section where you fight him, and then you unlock the third section where you fight him. It feels like a level more so than those ship levels, for example. But it was so empty. In the first area when you're battling Darth Vader, there's 3 sections you can go down to, and there's ladders where you can like climb down, you can climb up and then go down. Only one of those sections actually leads to the continuation of the level, so that's like the main pathway. The other 2 have nothing in them. It's just empty collision. It's just an empty hallway with collision in it. There's nothing. I'm pretty sure there was no objects there to destroy, to get coins or the studs, which is more correct. But there's also nothing else. There's no collectibles. Most of the collectibles are just in plain sight. It was in none of those other things. So you have this huge model of like the ship where the battle takes place in, but you did nothing with it, and it was so disappointing because, like, it again, as I said, one of the positives of the game is the environment, but then the environment is just empty collision work. It was really disappointing, and it feels like there was either a mismatch between the vision and implementation, or between vision and time that they had, because a lot of the quests are just crammed into like linear um, progression of the level, or like the expected progression of the level, but as soon as you go off the beaten path, there's genuinely nothing waiting for you there. There are times where there are things waiting for you, like for example in the one of the battles you can go backwards and then there's like a platforming challenge for the mini kit. That's fine, but then there's, just empty hallways leading to absolutely nowhere, and I feel like this would have made more sense in a triple A realistic game where you would have scripted events and you would go from platform to platform, etc. But in a Lego game, you're just walking a really long and really huge environments, and nothing is happening until you reach a point where the script section takes place in, and then you begin to fight. So, for example, the General Grievous fight it just lasted for like 10 years. It never ended. He just climbs a different part of the map, and you go there and then you fight him forever. And combat is a bit more advanced than before, but it's still very repetitive. And I just feel like the whole battle, one-on-one battles, not the combat, but one-on-one battles, I feel like it wasn't balanced properly. And it just goes with my argument of like the ship battles, and most of those things feeling very filler, feeling very, okay, this just lasts forever now, and I'm just waiting for this to end, because it's not challenging per se. There's no setback if you die. So unless you're completing like extra challenges and stuff, but even then, most of the challenges are just, they're not that difficult to achieve, and the game just ends up feeling empty, and there's not much incentive to go forward except the charm and the environment, as I've already said. And if we were to say that side missions count, which I would say that side missions also matter in a game, for the most part, a lot of the side missions in this game are just busy work, but in the most mundane sense of the busy work. There are some cool missions, there are very cool platforming sections, as I mentioned. There's also some cool story beats, twists and turns, but there's also a lot of really I have to do this now, because it doesn't challenge me, it doesn't invite me, it's just boring. There was a couple of quests where you have to smuggle in something from one planet to another planet, which I found cool. And then the way they made that thing a bit more exciting was on the loading screen, you would get like a warning sign, and then you would get attacked midway while traveling to a different planet. And I was like, okay, that's something. And then I think I was interrupted like 3 different times, and the only thing that changed was, in the first encounter I had to shoot 9 TIE fighters, and then in the second encounter it was 11, and then in the third it was 13, and it's the same thing. You can just stand in the middle of the sky plane and just shoot them. We just go up and down, and you just shoot everything that's coming towards you, and you beat the thing. So when there's like 7 of those missions, and all of them have 3 interceptions, and all of them have the same gameplay loop, it becomes very annoying to do them. And another mission that is another sort of segment, I think it was it's on Tatooine, near I think it was near Luke's house, up on those mountains. There's a whole set of missions, sorry, where every single mission leads you to a different planet. And the problem with this is every planet has its landing animations, loading animations, flying there animate. There's so many things that happen in between you completing a mission, and the mission is mostly scripted. You just go to a place, you talk to people that are on the map, that you see on the map that you should talk to. You find an item that you need to find, then you fly back. It's just it's very tedious. It's very like and again, where it becomes really apparent is this one place on Tatooine where I think like 5 or 6 missions all require you to do that. Of course, you don't need to do those missions one by one, but you're kind of, if you have a brain like me, you kind of want to be done with that section. So you try to do everything in one section, and every single mission in that section is the same mission. You have to go to a different planet and do this one ABC thing, and you go back. And I think what you end up having is I kind of feel cheated. I feel like you have extended your playtime so you can sell this at a bigger price so this can feel like a premium product. But I haven't done anything. I have just done the same thing 6 times. And I feel like that's another almost a deal breaker. But when it comes to nitpicks, there's also other things, but those are not deal breakers. Those are just they're just phantoms of modern gaming. They're just things that happen, and you can't. I mean, you can do something about them. I wish they would fix them, but I understand why that would happen. One of those things is when you have to shoot enemies that suddenly have a billion health bar, like they have so much health that they never had anywhere before. Like you would fight similar enemies before, but because now they're a part of a side mission which has to last at least 5 minutes, it takes forever to shoot, and then sometimes you have to shoot like a small animal or a small creature which you can barely aim, even with auto aim you can barely aim at it. And sometimes even though you shoot it, the health doesn't go down because the game just wants you to play it a bit longer because it's too short for you to just spam it. And I guess this is a bit better from Lego games before, where you just spam the hell out of like the attack button and you just beat the boss. This is a bit more intuitive, but it's still just preventing you from hitting artificially. It's just like you're hitting it, but it just doesn't count as hitting. That doesn't seem very fair from me as a player to expect that the game should do that. It feels like the game is cheating so it can be artificially long, and there's a lot of that happening. So that's one thing, you're shooting enemies and the health bar never goes down because the mission requires it so. And also another thing that I don't like is there's a lot of missions where you have to assume something. And this, I guess you can say, well, the game is trying to challenge you, so it's not holding your hand as much. But it just becomes confusing. Like there's some parts where you have to travel to certain places to get, let's say, a password, a C3PO password. And it's a very specific place on a different planet connected to a very specific place on another planet. And when you're trying to 100% each planet, it just gets confusing. And there's certain missions that you just would not know how to do unless you stumbled upon the way of doing it or you just looked it up. And there's one specific mission that comes to mind. I think it's on Naboo. You find this very sketchy dealer of some sort of sketchy items or whatever it is. And he doesn't want to give you the item because you're not the guy he's looking for. And there's no hints as to which guy he's looking for, but there's a guy next to him with a dialogue option which you can talk to, and he tells you that he is most likely expecting a person from this planet and this specific place on that planet, and his occupation is this specific thing. So I just went to that planet expecting that, well, I'm gonna find the guy there wherever he may be. It says it's near a hangar, near like a military place. I think it was on Federal District or something like that, and it's near a hangar. And I tried to find this hangar. There's no hangar there. There's nothing that alludes to this being the thing. And then I look up, like, what the hell is going on? Again, is my game glitched? That's my main fear with Lego games. Is my game completely glitched now? Because, like, the guy is not appearing where he's supposed to appear, so I just wasted a bunch of hours collecting things. And no, it turns out you have to mind trick the guy to dance in front of the sketchy guy, and then while he's dancing, he's distracted. So then you ask him to give you the deal that he's dealing, and then because he's confused from the dancing, he confuses you for the person he's expecting, and he gives you the item. I think it was like a vehicle or a spaceship or something. That is the game design of like old SNES games where you had to know how to beat it, like Takashi's Challenge, and those games like where it's impossible to beat the game unless you buy the manual or you just have infinite time and infinite patience to deal with the things. Like how much? Of course, you can kind of assume that because there's an option to distract him, and this is the first thing I did after I realized that traveling to a planet is gonna to the other planet is gonna be really annoying. So I'm gonna try and do whatever I can on this one to see if the mission requires me to do something here, which is not a good thing because the mission should be clear enough for me to not assume doing random things is gonna do it. But whatever. So I distracted the guy. I brought him to dance in front of the other guy, but the other guy was pushed by some invisible collision. He was pushed away. The dealer's guy was pushed away. So the animation didn't trigger, so I couldn't get the item. And then I realized, okay, so I need to travel to the planet where he specifically said that I should travel because it's actually bolded or it's actually colored yellow when he's saying it in the dialogue. So okay, I'm gonna go there. And then I go there, there's nothing, and then I look it up. Oh no, you just meant to do the thing that I already did, but just the animation shouldn't glitch out. That's the only thing that's different. And it's those sort of things that really annoy you because it's like I could have spent like years finding this specific location you mentioned specifically in the dialogue box, and all I had to do was this completely other thing. And there's also another mission which irritates me, which was again it was on Naboo. You have to I think there's a character which sort of he has a kyber brick in his hands, and then when you approach him, he wants you to chase him down to win the brick. That specific one on Naboo just glitches out. When you activate him, you activate the dialogue with him, and he starts running. He just disappears off the map. He just doesn't exist on the map. And I thought again for the 100th time, okay, here we go again. The game is broken. There's nothing to do about it. And then I looked it up, and you can just like drain his health without triggering the cutscene of talking to him, and then that gives you the brick. Fine, sure. I'm glad that can happen. But if I was doing it the proper way, the game is broken enough so that doesn't happen properly. And that sort of lack of polish is definitely present, and that's another point to be taken from this game. I know that the things I said sound mostly negative, but again, as an experience, I think to conclude my opinion piece, I think Skywalker Saga is satisfying to play. It's fun to play. It places you in the world that you like if you like it. And I think overall it's a good package. But I also think that, and I guess another bonus sort of random thing, it kind of made the sequels bearable, and it made sequels. I kind of wanted to give credits to the sequel. There was some cool things happening there, but because I actually never seen the sequels, and I don't want to see them. I just haven't gotten the impression that that's something I should do from what I've researched about them. I don't want to give them support for what they did. But I found certain points in the Lego version of them cool enough. I think they were done in a funny way. So that's a bonus. They made the sequels a bit more bearable. If that's a positive, I don't know, but it was kind of interesting. I found them intriguing at least, but maybe it was just a novelty factor. I don't know. But anyways, I think the game is fun. The game should be experienced if you're interested. Just bear in mind that the Lego jank is somewhat present, and some of the game structure is very questionable. It wants to drain your time. But if you don't care about those things, if you can go past those things, I think it's fun enough. For me, it was fun enough, and I think it's sort of soothing when with all the things happening in the world, and you're just wanting to sort of. It's almost like a safety net because the game is very repetitive, but it's also very rewarding. So it just soothes you, especially if you have ADHD tendencies or just distractive tendencies. It's a very soothing game. It's a very simple game. So I think it reminds me a lot of like Ratchet and Clank 2016 and those games, which I also 100%. So I think it's a fun experience. Give it a go, but there are things which will most likely 100% annoy you. So yeah, that's my piece on it.